Yo, what's up, Coach?
What the hell's going on, man?
Some people, when they talk about you, they say Antonio Brown needs mental help. Do you feel like you need help?
We all need mental help.
Some people speculate that Vontaze Burfict's hit has adversely impacted your behavior after that. Is that true?
What you want me to say? You play the game long enough, everyone get hit hard. It's just the emotional problem. What do you do with a guy who's been playing ball since 6? You know, I'm from Liberty City. I grew up in adverse areas.
Would you say that your life is out of control in any way?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, maybe.
The same man who led the 2010s in every single receiving stat, who won a Super Bowl and played for one team for nearly a decade, is also the same man who was kicked out of his own house, was a starting quarterback while homeless, and even was so intimidating, other quarterbacks wouldn't dare challenge him. But before he could cap off his Hall of Fame career, Antonio Brown's past came creeping up on him and ruined his NFL career. When did Antonio Brown's career start going downhill? What started it? How predictable was it? How did one of the best players of our generation, one of the greatest come-from-behind stories in NFL history, get cut from his Super Bowl winning team just a week before the playoffs? This is the rise and fall of Antonio Brown. Break! Antonio Brown nowadays might be known for his tiptoe catches and unmatched receiving ability, but before Antonio Brown was even 18, the native Floridian was riding couches, scrounging up money to get a motel room, basically homeless, and still at the same time the starting quarterback for his high school football team. At just the age of 16, Antonio Brown was kicked out of his mother's house after an altercation with his new stepfather, and was forced to live like a grown man from a young age.
My dad was away, my mom had another husband, and that relationship with me didn't fine-tune out really too well, and other kids, and as a teenager I had to live with teammates and kind of find a way for myself. A young kid, 16-year-old, don't understand that, couldn't understand that you're born in the world with your parents, and the people who brought you in the world, they abandon you. As a kid, you would never understand that, being that you're, to your mind, you're just the perfect kid.
Antonio Brown went to Miami Norland High School, and due to his upbringing, Brown knew how to face adverse conditions and to keep pushing even when it seemed like you couldn't do anymore. While going through a tough living situation, Antonio Brown still managed to be All-State in Florida twice, even managing to win the North Athlete of the Year award at the 2005 Miami-Dade Gridiron Classic. Brown was such an electric signal caller, in fact, that another quarterback you may have heard of, named Geno Smith, decided against going to Miami Norland because he feared Antonio Brown as competition. After a phenomenal high school career, Brown decided to enroll at North Carolina Tech Prep, a school for football players who graduated high school, but still aren't at the collegiate level. And here in just 5 games, he threw just over 1,200 yards and had a combined 24 total touchdowns through the air and on the ground. According to this 11-year-old ESPN article, the at the time 6-year-old program was accused of pumping teenagers with hopes of Division I college scholarships and vastly overstated the number of college players born of NC Tech. Former coaches say that the program, which costed several $1,000s to attend, targeted teenagers in dire straits, often from backgrounds naive to recruiting and eligibility guidelines, who either don't meet NCAA academic standards or fail to attract college scholarship offers, very similar to Antonio Brown's background. Now, no students attended class full-time on the NC Tech campus, which consisted of leased space in an office park south of downtown. The school year that began in July is already complete, and even before the class of 2011 bid a final goodbye, the NCAA Eligibility Center in late October flagged the program's curriculum as not meeting the standards for the second time in as many years. Now, almost a decade later, Antonio Brown, who at the time didn't have the NCAA required test scores to get into Alcorn State after high school, and as a result needed to go to North Carolina Tech before landing a spot with Central Michigan University, literally denounced the school, saying that he did not approve of the school's sales pitch that includes references to him. After this, the star Floridian transplant decided to take his football career to the next level, but no one, not even Antonio himself, could predict what would happen next. Before Antonio Brown could ever walk on at Central Michigan University, the native Floridian tried to get into local schools like Florida State and Florida International University. But after being involved in an altercation with a security guard and having bad high school grades, Brown's scholarships were rescinded, and he was forced to walk on to Central Michigan University to follow the one man who heavily recruited Brown out of high school, head coach Butch Jones. Jones convinced Brown to move to wide receiver full-time, and in his freshman year, the undersized wideout caught just over 100 balls for over 1,000 yards and even managed to score 6 touchdowns. Talk about making an instant impact. Brown would earn himself a scholarship at Central Michigan University, and with the help of the freshman sensation, Central Michigan managed to win the MAC Conference and qualify for a bowl game with an 8-5 record, highlighted by a Week 12 victory over Akron, where Antonio Brown hauled in 15 balls for a total of 174 yards. Going into Brown's sophomore year, he was going to take on a bigger role, and in one less game the year prior, the wide receiver caught 93 receptions for just under 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, along with over 1,200 yards in kick and punt returns alone. Brown will continue to make a name for himself, as in the bowl game that year against FAU, the second-year wideout would catch 11 passes for just under 100 yards in a 24-21 loss. By this time, Brown wasn't on many draft boards, and going into his junior season, he knew he needed to show out in order to even be mentioned in the same breath as the NFL draft, and show out he would do. In his final year at Central Michigan, the third-year wideout put up career highs in all 3 of the major receiving statistics, as in 14 games he caught 110 receptions for just under 1,200 receiving yards and had a combined 12 touchdowns via the air and ground. Brown would go on to win the only bowl game of his collegiate career in a 44-41 shootout against Troy, where he balled out, hauling in a season-high 13 receptions for 178 yards. In just 3 seasons at Central Michigan, Brown had caught 305 passes, recorded 3,199 yards, and hauled in 22 touchdowns, the latter both being top 5 in program history. Following his phenomenal under-the-radar college career, Antonio Brown would declare for the 2010 NFL Draft, and no one knew or even had a hunch about what Antonio Brown would go on to do in the 2010s decade. Not even the greatest NFL scout knew, as every single team passed on him not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 5 times. If you told them he'd be a record breaker by his second year in the NFL, they might have changed their mind.
Brown's strength and instinct deficiencies will make it difficult to separate the next level.
Could have used another year of development. Character concerns could limit his appeal and knock him off draft boards.
NFL projection, late draftable pick. Well, I think the only thing they got right there was late draftable pick. That's what he was.
After being passed on 5 separate times by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 6th round with pick number 195, the Pittsburgh Steelers selected the undersized receiver out of Central Michigan, Antonio Brown. Brown didn't blow anyone away with his physical toolset, as in the combine he had just posted a 4.48 40-yard dash and 13 reps on the bench press. So it's not like Antonio Brown had any physical prowess that put him above and beyond. In fact, in the 2010 NFL Draft class, class, Antonio Brown was the 22nd overall wide receiver chosen, behind guys like Eric Decker, Golden Tate, and even fellow rookie Steelers receiver Emmanuel Sanders. Despite being picked so late, Antonio Brown managed to claim a spot on the roster, splitting time with fellow rookie Emmanuel Sanders as wide receiver number 5 on the depth chart. In his rookie season, Brown appeared in just 9 games, catching just over 100 yards on 16 receptions for no touchdowns. Going into year 2, however, was when the wide receiver really started to show what he could do. In his second year as a Pittsburgh Steeler, the Central Michigan product hauled in just over 1,100 yards and 2 touchdowns, but also had over 1,000 total yards returning punts and kicks as he became the first ever player in NFL history with 1,000 yards receiving and returning. This helped the undersized wideout make the first Pro Bowl of his career and would set him on the path of stardom and fame, which usually ends up with a gold jacket in Canton. However, unfortunately for Antonio Brown, it would eventually become his downfall, and no one would see it coming. Before the start of the 2012 season, third-year wide receiver Antonio Brown signed a 5-year, $42.5 million contract extension, which included an $8.5 million signing bonus. After signing the contract and being named the team's starting receiver, Antonio Brown, reportedly via Ryan Clark, told defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau and defensive players during practice, "Don't touch me, I'm the franchise."
Quick story, Antonio Brown is walking past the weight room in training camp. And right now we hear that Mike Wallace has turned down his deal. Antonio's going into his 3rd year. You hear that Mike Wallace has turned down his deal. And I knew already that they were going to offer Antonio. And he's walking past, and I turn to the strength coach and I say, when you give him money, you're going to create a monster. That day in practice, Antonio and I almost get into a fight because he's saying things to Coach LeBeau. He's screaming at Coach LeBeau, screaming at us defensively, "Don't touch me, I'm the franchise," this and that, because he already had that mindset, and now with success, with money, these things come.
This would be a foreshadowing of Antonio Brown's future antics, and plenty of worse incidents would come to follow. And if you don't believe me, you need to see them for yourself to see just how bad it gets in the rest of this video. The 2012 NFL season was an uncharacteristic struggle for Antonio Brown, as he never had a 100-yard receiving game in the season, and in Week 9 against the New York Giants, Brown would go down with a high ankle sprain that caused the star wide receiver to miss 3 games and hampered him the rest of the season. Despite this lackluster season, Brown still managed to finish with nearly 800 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. The 2012 campaign was anything but a coming out show for the now 25-year-old wide receiver, and going into 2013, Antonio wanted to make sure people knew that 2011 wasn't a fluke, and that he was going to be a force for years to come. Despite this, not even the biggest Steelers fan at the time could predict what Antonio Brown would go on to do for the franchise. In Week 3 of the 2013 NFL season, Brown finally had his coming out party against the Chicago Bears as the Pittsburgh Steelers lost big 40-23. Despite the lopsided score, Brown hauled in 9 balls for 196 receiving yards and a pair of touchdowns, as after that, Brown made sure everyone who was a fan of football knew his name. Brown would go on to have the best season of his career up to that point, as he caught 110 receptions, nearly 1,500 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns en route to making his 2nd career Pro Bowl. Brown also shattered some more records, as he broke the Steelers' record for receiving yards in a season, previously held by Yancey Thigpen, and became the first player in NFL history to have at least 5 receptions and 50 yards receiving in each game that season. Brown was a bona fide superstar in the NFL, and many thought that was the peak for the undersized wide receiver out of Central Michigan. But in the following seasons, Antonio Brown would go on to do things no other wide receiver in NFL history could match, not even Julio Jones. The 2014 season would kick off Antonio Brown's prime, as it started off remarkably for Antonio Brown. In the season opener, he caught 5 receptions for 116 passing yards, but most importantly on a punt return, managed to famously kick the Browns punter, Spencer Lanning, directly in the face, a sweet chin music even Shawn Michaels would be proud of. But after the incident, the NFL fined Antonio Brown $8,200 for his antics, and lackluster apology after. afterward. The 2014 season would continue to be one of Antonio Brown's best, as in Week 9 against the Baltimore Ravens, the stud wideout caught a season-high 11 receptions for another season-high 149 receiving yards and a touchdown. Brown finished the season leading the NFL in receptions with 129 and leading the NFL in yards with 1,698. Brown even managed to catch a team-leading 13 touchdowns while making his third Pro Bowl and being named AP First Team All-Pro for the first time in his career. Brown wouldn't stop his dominance there, however, as in the following 2015 NFL season, the superstar wideout once again led the NFL in receptions, this time with an astonishing 136 grabs, had 1,834 receiving yards, and once again, double-digit touchdowns. Brown once again was named to the Pro Bowl and named First Team All-Pro for the second time in his career, as he marked his place in NFL history, as he was named the best wide receiver in the NFL and 4th overall in the NFL's top 100 list of 2015, which is voted upon by other NFL players. Following the 2015 season, the stud wideout played in the wildcard round versus the division rival Cincinnati Bengals. In the game, he was hit in the head by, ironically, a future teammate in Vontaze Burfict, and was not seen moving on the field for minutes afterward. Although Antonio Brown eventually recovered and continued playing the next season, many speculate this may have been the cause of Antonio Brown's future antics, because after this hit, he may have sustained permanent brain damage.
Man, after it was all over, I spoke to Joey. Joey told me he came out and was talking to me on the field, and I was laying down, talking to him perfectly. But I couldn't even remember even having a conversation with him.
We have a completely separate video on Vontaze Burfict, and we'll leave that in the end screen of this video. Again, this is purely speculation, and there is no evidence to support this conspiracy. However, the supporting argument is Brown, up until this point, had very few career incidents that would make him a locker room issue. But believe it or not, this would be Antonio Brown's last season that didn't have any incidents or any fines, as the start of the next season would mark a downward spiral in his life. Antonio Brown would never recover from, despite just getting better and better as a football player. The start of the 2016 season was just like any other start to the year for AB. In the season opener against the Washington Redskins on Monday Night Football, in front of the whole nation, Antonio Brown put on a clinic, catching a pair of touchdowns on 8 receptions, totaling just over 125 yards, as the Steelers blew by the Washington Redskins 38-16. Following the game, however, Antonio Brown was fined a combined $15,000 for simply wearing baby blue cleats, which went against the NFL's uniform policy. Oh, and also twerking after scoring a touchdown. Brown was also fined again for doing the exact same touchdown celebration against the Kansas City Chiefs. In the first 4 weeks of the 2016 campaign, Antonio Brown had already racked up an astonishing $40,000 price tag for simply just twerking too much. So if you think today's rules of no celebrating and taunting are strict, remember that you couldn't twerk after scoring a touchdown in 2016.
And there was a time for this law, but not anymore. See, this is our time to dance. It is our way of celebrating life.
Despite the league's best effort of trying to keep business from booming, Antonio Brown finished the season with 106 receptions, 1,284 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Antonio Brown was named to the Pro Bowl once again, and for the third time in his career, was named AP First Team All-Pro. Following winning the AFC North Division, going 11-5, and then beating the Miami Dolphins in the wildcard round 30-12, Antonio Brown had one of the biggest playoff performances of his career, as he caught 6 balls for 108 passing yards as the Pittsburgh Steelers narrowly knocked off the Kansas City Chiefs 18-16. Following the game, however, despite pleas from team captain Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin previously to keep quiet on social media during their playoff run, post-game Antonio Brown took to Facebook Live to broadcast Mike Tomlin's post-game speech.
Keep low profiles. Let's get ready ready to ball our fists up again here in a few days and be right back at it.
The Steelers would lose the following game to the Patriots by a score of 36-17, despite Antonio Brown's best efforts. Before the start of the 2017 season, the Pittsburgh Steelers gave Antonio Brown yet another 4-year extension, this time worth $68 million, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, and deservedly so. Antonio Brown's 2017 campaign started right where Antonio Brown left off, as in Week 1 versus the Cleveland Browns, Antonio Brown hauled in 11 receptions on 11 targets for just over 180 yards. Absolutely clinical. Brown would go on to have one of his best seasons to date. However, in Week 4, during a 26-9 dominant victory over the Baltimore Ravens, on the sideline, Antonio Brown became frustrated as he had just 4 receptions for 34 yards and proceeded to yell at coaches and at Ben Roethlisberger. He would even knock over a Gatorade cooler as a result of this. After this altercation, Brown would simmer down, and in Week 14 in the rematch against the Baltimore Ravens, Antonio Brown would put up a career day as he caught 11 passes for just over 210 yards. With the help of Brown's dominant performance, the Steelers would win the AFC North and would go on to make a playoff run. However, before Brown could help the Steelers moving forward, in Week 15 against the Patriots, Brown suffered a partially torn left calf and would only return just in time to help contribute 132 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns as the Steelers fell just short of the AFC Championship, losing 42-45 to Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Also, the Jacksonville Jaguars are good now.
Impossible.
I'm serious.
Antonio Brown finished the 2017 season with just over 100 receptions, a league-leading 1,533 passing yards, and 9 touchdowns. For the final time in his career, Antonio Brown would be named AP First Team All-Pro and would make yet another Pro Bowl. Going into the first year of Antonio Brown's 4-year extension, no one could have told you it was going to be his final year in Pittsburgh. As in the 2018 campaign, during the season opener against the Browns, Antonio Brown eclipsed the 10,000 receiving yard mark and became the 3rd fastest wide receiver to do so, placing himself in the elite company of Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson. He finished the game with 9 receptions for just over 90 yards and a touchdown. Antonio Brown would continue to light up box scores. However, he also lit up headlines as on October 9th, 2018, Antonio Brown was accused of nearly killing a toddler as he was throwing furniture out of his 14th-story apartment. All charges were dropped, however, after Antonio Brown blamed it on a friend and promised to pay for the child's college fund. But this would be the final 2018 Antonio Brown headline for the season, right? Right? Wrong. Because of course, leading up to the now infamous Week 17 game, Antonio Brown had reportedly been missing multiple practices and even got into a heated altercation with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, and as a result was benched as the Pittsburgh Steelers went 9-6-1 and missed the playoffs. Brown finished with 104 receptions for 1,297 yards and a league-leading 15 touchdowns as he was named to the 7th and final Pro Bowl of his career. No one would know it yet, but Week 16 of 2018 would be Antonio Brown's final game ever as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and no one could predict what would happen next in Antonio Brown's career, not even Mr. Big Chest himself. Following the 2018 NFL season, Brown made his frustrations with the Pittsburgh Steelers organization public and requested a trade soon after. Initially, a deal to send the former All-Pro to the Buffalo Bills was all but final, but after Antonio Brown made it known that he wouldn't play in Buffalo no matter what, he was traded to the Oakland Raiders instead for just a 3rd and 5th round pick. Following the trade in a press conference, Brown promised to elevate those around him.
I mean, I'm here to help the program in all regards. You know, I'm here to make guys better around me. I'm here to elevate everything around me. I'm here to just be a surge of energy, of positivity, and a good force, a great teammate, and bring out the best of everyone around me, because we all know it's not just about me.
But before Brown could ever suit up in the silver and black, due to wearing improper footwear, Antonio Brown got frostbite on his feet and revealed it to the world by posting a picture of his feet onto Instagram. Antonio Brown crawled so Aaron Rodgers could walk. Despite this, the Raiders were positive about the addition of Brown. However, in mid-August, Antonio Brown threatened to retire if he wasn't allowed to practice or play in an old-school style helmet that Brown had been using his whole career. Despite this, the Raiders were still positive, simply fining Brown for just missing practice. But Brown took this personally, posting the letter from Mike Mayock onto Instagram with the caption, "When your own team wants to hate, but there's no stopping me now, devil is a lie. Everyone gotta pay this year, so we clear." The following day at practice, Antonio Brown reportedly had gotten into a heated confrontation with general manager Mike Mayock, which resulted in Brown calling him a cracker, threatening to beat him up, punting a football, then yelling, "Find me for that." And then the Raiders proceeded to fine him for that. The next day, Antonio Brown made a half-hearted apology and would be cut from the team soon after. After never suiting up for the Raiders, the only team that had the audacity to even touch Antonio Brown was, of course, the New England Patriots. Initially, Brown's future with the Patriots was in question, as in September of 2019, multiple civil suits were filed against him, including by his former trainer for sexual assault, among other things, and also for pushing around his ex-fiancée after she reportedly was asking for a haircut reimbursement previously in the year. Brown's attorney called these allegations baseless, and Brown would go on to play in Week 2 for the New England Patriots, where he hauled in a touchdown along with 54 yards. Shortly after the game, however, threatening text messages sent by Brown after the initial allegations were leaked. And on September 20th, the New England Patriots released Antonio Brown. In the following days, Antonio Brown would say he is retired from football. However, a few days later would express interest in playing. This wouldn't stop there, as during the whole offseason, Antonio Brown would make these baseless claims, and then for a few hours or days later, say he wanted to play football again. During the offseason, as Antonio Brown had cleared up his legal situation, he was handed an 8-game suspension for violating the league's personal conduct policy, and would be forced to miss the first 8 games of the season. Even if he was miraculously signed, this might seem like the end for AB, but somehow, someway, he would eventually reach the pinnacle of the sport, and shocked even the biggest of doubters. On October 27, 2020, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers gave Antonio Brown another chance to play football, signing Antonio Brown to a 1-year contract. The main reason the Buccaneers signed Antonio Brown? Tom Brady. Brady had been a big part of why Antonio Brown was initially brought into New England, and now that the ageless wonder was down in Tampa, it made sense for the wide receiver to follow him down there. Following the suspension, Antonio Brown would play in 8 games, starting just 4 as he caught 45 receptions for nearly 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. With the help of AB, the Buccaneers' offense started clicking down the stretch, and after a miraculous run where Antonio Brown made some improbable catches, the Buccaneers found themselves in the Super Bowl. Somehow, someway, just a few short years after being cut from the Raiders and being traded by the Steelers, Antonio Brown found himself on the doorstep of being a world champion. And with the help of Tom Brady, Antonio Brown would find his way into the end zone as he would score a touchdown in the Super Bowl and played an important role as to why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9. Antonio Brown was now a Super Bowl champion, and Antonio Brown would stay with the Buccaneers after this championship run, as in April, he signed a 1-year contract to remain in Tampa Bay. Going into the 2021 season, Brown spent time on and off the COVID list, playing in just 7 total games. However, on December 2nd, Antonio Brown was found to have faked his vaccination card, and had claimed to have gotten it from a former personal chef. As a result, Brown was suspended 3 games. Against the New York Jets, Antonio Brown had reportedly refused to play due to a lagging injury, and Bruce Arians told him to go. Brown took that literally, as he made a scene on the sideline as he tossed his helmet and shoulder pads to the side, took off his undershirt, threw it into the crowd, and walked off doing jumping jacks. In the following days, Antonio Brown would release a statement stating the reason he left the field so suddenly was because head coach Bruce Arians was trying to force him to play through an injury. Brown would go on to say the ankle ligament was torn torn from the ankle bone. He was injected with a dangerous painkiller and that he would have proof in the form of an MRI soon after. AB then released text messages between him and Bruce Arians, which showed Bruce Arians was well aware of Antonio Brown's injury pre-game, which contradicts what Arians told the media directly after the game. When you take into account that Antonio Brown has a history of faking stuff like his COVID vaccination card, of course the validity of these text messages should be called into question. The next day, per Adam Schefter, Jason Licht, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, said that Antonio Brown had requested $2 million in incentives to be guaranteed, which the Tampa Bay Buccaneers declined, and that Antonio Brown had never once told any coach or medical assistant on Sunday that his ankle was injured. Later on in the same day, Bruce Arians would have a press conference where he announced the official release of Antonio Brown, and that the real reason the star wideout left the field on Sunday was because he wasn't getting enough targets in the game.
We let Antonio go today, just to clear you up on some things that happened. At no point in time during that game did he ever ask a trainer or a doctor about his ankle. He was very upset at halftime about who was getting targeted. Got that calmed down. Players took care of that. It started again on the sideline. We called for the personnel group that he had played in the entire game. He refused to go in the game. That's when I looked back and saw him basically wave off the coach. I then went back, approached him about what was going on. I ain't playing. What's going on? I ain't getting the ball. That's when I said, "You're done. Get the F out of here." And that's the end of it.
General Manager Jason Licht would go on to say in a thread of Adam Schefter tweets that the alleged MRI and medical information Brown was speaking about was never manifested, and that any efforts to work with the former Bucs wide receiver were ignored. In the words of Bruce Arians,
"You can't force a player to play. You can't force a player to play. I mean, they have that choice. It's their body."
As of now, there is no telling which side is telling the truth, and it just seems like a he said, she said situation. But before you thought things couldn't get any crazier, they got even more insane. A day after all of this information was released, right when it looked like the story couldn't get any more drama-filled, Antonio Brown was exposed by a toilet-licking, master's degree-having, drama-stirring OnlyFans model named Ava Louise. For all the controversy Louise has been in, credit where credit is due, she is incredibly good and talented at stirring the pot. A day after the official release of Brown, Louise came out with screenshots exposing Antonio Brown for sneaking her into a team hotel before the Jets and the Buccaneers game. She would go on to say that AB was a nice guy but not quote-unquote all there, said he played his highlights for entertainment before going to bed, and finally said he only lasted 30 seconds. Of course, all of this doesn't really matter, but what is important is Antonio Brown sneaking in a girl during the pandemic just to get some and ignoring the danger it could cause to his teammates. Then when things seemed like it couldn't get any worse for AB, he decided to go on the Full Send podcast, where he would say contradictory and harsh statements on his former teammate Tom Brady, who, remember, was the only reason AB even got a third or fourth chance in the NFL, and the only reason he was still playing to begin with.
These guys called me to win the Super Bowl. After a suspension, I come and help them do that. If Tom Brady's my boy, why am I playing for an earnest salary?
Right.
You my boy though, right?
Right.
Gronkowski is boy, right?
Right.
How much did he get paid?
Significant amount.
Damn. All right, so why is AB on a prove-it deal?
Well, for starters, Tom Brady isn't the general manager. Yes, he may get decisions and choices of players on the roster, but he is not the one handing out contracts and deciding numbers. Secondly, Rob Gronkowski is only getting paid $10 million with incentives, compared to Antonio Brown's $3 million contract with incentives. It's not like Rob Gronkowski is getting paid a boatload, plus Gronkowski has a decade's worth of rapport with Tom Brady that makes the $10 million he's being paid priceless. Antonio Brown, on the other hand, hasn't had one of his trademark seasons since 2018, and instead has been in the headlines for a handful of off-the-field issues. If AB is seriously complaining about his salary, maybe he should have signed somewhere else besides Tampa Bay last offseason. But no one else wanted to sign him because he's a head case and Tom Brady was the only one who believed in him. Yet, here's Antonio Brown trashing him. AB would go on to say that he was the most talented player on the team and that no one else on the team was even close to him.
Who's better than me over there? Let's be real.
Right, but don't
no, let's not be right. Let's be honest.
No,
This is the podcast to be real.
No, I'll be real.
Who is
AB
the best guy over there?
AB.
Since you guys know football, who is it?
For sure,
Who's
AB.
the best
guy over on that team?
No,
AB.
football, receiver-wise, who is the guy that get it popping?
I mean, I think it's a combination of all you guys. I think it was AB.
Combination now.
Dude, I've always said, for me, I've watched you
But
play.
you got a right to your opinion, bro. I'm not trying to force your opinion. I'm not trying to force your opinion.
I'm just a diehard Brady fan.
Listen, man, it is what it is. It's not about being a fan. It's about being a realistic humanity, a human. That's what it's about, bro. A Brady fan, Brady can't do shit by himself. But you guys gonna make it seem like he just this horror guy. Bro, we're all humans, bro. We all dependent on someone else to do the job. Just like your show, you dependent on the video team, the audio team. You count on people to set this up.
Right.
So you don't think he helped you at all, Brady?
Now you saying who helped. Listen, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was the realistic of right now. How did he help me? Would he help my career to come back?
Yes, he did. AB, he literally did. Later, when asked about staying at Tom Brady's house, AB basically wrote it off as a PR stunt for Brady, saying,
because they helped you stay at his house and shit. And
bro, stay at his house. I got my own money, bro. You guys know who I am?
I like the fact
I don't need to stay at no one's house. I got my own houses. Guys do that to influence you guys in the publicly, like, oh, he's at Tom's house, then he's maybe a good guy.
Right.
AB, since this podcast, hasn't released any new information or press releases and is standing by every word he said, but there is this very strange clip of him, Kanye West, and Julia Fox, and Floyd Mayweather all sitting down with one another looking like they are on ecstasy on a couch. It's kind of a sad sight, man, because it seems like each and every person on this couch looks like they're going through a midlife crisis. Antonio Brown was a humble young man who came from a rough background, who had to walk on to Central Michigan to even get an opportunity. AB has proven that when given an opportunity, he will make the most of it, and in his tenure in the NFL, caught more yards, more receptions, and more touchdowns than any wide receiver from the year 2010 to 2020. No other player could do what Antonio Brown did in his prime, and his body of work is unmatchable. Later in his career, Antonio Brown let his ego and fame get the better of him, getting into countless incidents and even more that will probably go unreported. Brown had one more chance in the NFL, won a Super Bowl, and quite literally left the game on his own accord. And that's more than most NFL players get to say. But is Antonio Brown even responsible for his own actions, or could a specific traumatic incident in his career have resulted in this once soft-spoken wide receiver absolutely losing grip of reality?
What is a feeling that football has given you, Antonio, that it brought you to tears with joy?
You know, every day I go out there, man, I get the feeling of tears of joy, you know, man, that I know where I could be, you know what I mean? And to see where I'm at and what I'm doing, it's a blessing in itself.
I feel like if you're stable within, you know, that's where it starts. We all could wear a smile on the outside and could be feeling bad on the inside. For me, you know, it starts within. I'm happy within, and I'm joyful, and you can see it in my smile.
So you don't fake your smiles. Your smiles come because you're genuinely happy on the inside.
Absolutely. So I think I feel it more so in my heart than maybe you see on my face.
It's pretty awesome, man. You gotta love it. Sunday Night Football. Carrie Underwood. Don't get no better. Pretty awesome setup, man. It's pretty nice, man. I'm glad to be here.